what I want to do is I want to start with you, Yugandhar. Given at Dr. Reddy's, you do have China as a supplier and China also as a customer. And as we all know from a pharma industry perspective, about two-thirds of our imports in terms of APIs and intermediates are from China. So, if you can help us understand, how do we reduce this dependence on China and how practical is it?
Okay, thank you, and thanks, Anjani, and thanks for putting the politics aside for the time being, because I don't want to give any comments related to the politics, because I'm a nationalist, so let me be a nationalist. Okay, so talking about the China as a supplier, I think what we need to understand is China never forced anybody to buy from them. Okay, it is all about how they became competitive in the whole scheme of things and became competitive in the overall to the rest of the world. I think we need to understand those dynamics. Now, let me just talk about pharma industry per se, because I know my other panelists will be much more knowledgeable in terms of talking about auto and other stuff. But from pharmaceuticals, if you see it, there's something called high end of pharmaceuticals and the low end of pharmaceuticals. The low end of pharmaceuticals is nothing but you have your basic raw materials, or you can call it as intermediates or key starting materials. Then comes the next high end of pharmaceuticals, which is active pharmaceutical ingredients, which is APIs and formulations. Now, API and formulations, India has made itself as the world leader. Okay, it is not China, not Europe, not anybody in the world. It is India. In fact, somebody might be having a discussion in terms of how to keep India at bay for APIs and formulations. Okay, so and that's how the world is dependent on India for APIs and formulations. But because of the politics or the investments required and the pollution control issues and all, somehow the basic, the back end of this particular, we call it as dirty manufacturing, has been somehow exported back to China. Okay, I think China found their niche in terms of, okay, this is where we can play. India is superior in terms of APIs and formulation technologies. So that space has been left to India, whereas they started focusing only on the low end of manufacturing. That's how the dynamics are. In fact, if you see it worldwide, most of the countries will depend on China for these basic raw materials. Worldwide, most of the countries will depend on APIs and formulations from India. In fact, it will be a 70-30 combination in most of the things, but it is all driven by, I think, the strategic choices each of the industries as well as the countries made for themselves. They found that this is where they can stand and they can be competitive. And that's how because at the end of the day, because I'm supplying APIs to the rest of the world, I'm sending formulation to the rest of the world. I want my prices to be as competitive as possible. So I look for something which is actually where the competitive raw material I get it, we end up going to China, because I think Deepak has put the stage very well. I think there are some of the things which China as a country never bothered to implement, has made them to make some of these things done at a very, very cheap cost. I think that is where I think we ignored that end to end. I don't think we are dependent on Atmanirbhar, whatever we want to call it. We are not end to end dependent only on India. End to end, we have to ended up depending on China.